this week. Um, yeah, a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of
Yeah.
hectic stuff, stress stuff, work stuff. But
Life
I think I'm
stuff.
about ready to get going.
Yeah,
Yeah, ready,
100%. Speaking
really
of
ready
getting
to get going.
going, we're live. We're
We
live.
are
And
live.
we are. Oh gosh, dang it! I went for the sound effect, and I
Let's
didn't even
go.
have the app open. Kool-Aid. What am I doing?
Let's rock. Let's rock. No, we're
What's
gonna get
going
it. We're
on,
gonna get it.
everybody? We are.
It like completely cut
There
off
we
and
go.
went silent. Are you there, Sean?
Oh, I'm silent.
It went. It went. We are. All right, one more time. Let's do this.
All right,
One
can
more
you hear me?
time.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right, and we are.
What? It's gone again.
It did it again.
I love this. Bro.
I guess no sound effects tonight. What up, though, everybody? Welcome to What We're Pistons Table Talk. I am one of your hosts, Sean Murphy, alongside my boy. I literally almost went to go do the echo, and it was going to do it again, and that would have been really funny. But my boy, Kool-Aid, what's going on, man?
Ooh, man, I am so pumped up. I don't even know why. I know it's going to be, we say this all the time. I know we say it's going to be like a quick one tonight, but it is some pertinent stuff to talk about. Shout out to MTJ. Shout out to Bashir, but you are right. The Pistons schedule release. He said this is like the Pistons schedule release with it, with the audio dropping out. Sean is killing me tonight, dog.
Did you hear that?
Live. When we went live, I'm loving it. I'm loving the energy, bro.
Did you hear that? That's all I need to know. Answer the question.
You said, did I hear what? Did your sound effects work?
Anyway, welcome to What We're Pistons Table Talk. Oh, this is gonna kill me. My gosh. Anyway, let's go, man. Schedule release day. It's low key a pretty active day in basketball and NBA world, man.
MTJ.
No, I did not fart. But anyway, this is
Shout out to the regulars, man.
Yeah, I hate when tech doesn't work. But anyway, what I hate even more is when you don't hit that subscribe button, because this is What We're Pistons Table Talk. Each and every week we talk all things Detroit Pistons, all things Detroit basketball, all things Michigan. If you like that, be sure you like this video, hit that subscribe button, slap that mother notification bell, and be sure you share and tell with your friends. Follow my guy Kool-Aid on X at Detroit Kool-Aid, and you can follow myself on X at Sean Halfcourt. But with that, Kool-Aid, let's get this party started, shall we?
Let's rock, man. Look, we want to talk about, like I said, this Pistons schedule reveal on the pod this week. Rod Beard said he wanted to see what the Pistons schedule looked like, to see if it gives them an opportunity to get off to a good start. We've been talking about chemistry. We've been talking about they need to kind of hit the pedal to the metal, man. They need to hit the ground running to start this season, to give themselves any opportunity to be in it for the play-in. And I'm going to ask you guys this too. Rather than maybe how many wins, we can try and play that game too. I want to get into, are we, and Rod asked this question as well, are we better than 5 teams? We've done this the last couple seasons. The first season, we kind of just talked between ourselves. Last season, we said, are we better than 5 teams? And it was instantly like,
Yeah, we were like, And now my first reaction is, wait, let me try.
Long.
Anything?
It works for Steve. It works for Steve.
I fixed that.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Right. What up, Steve? How we doing, you beautiful man?
It's all right, man. Just been busy and a lot of change here, but it's all for the good.
Man, bro, welcome. I saw Dr. Steve in your Twitter.
That's right. So tomorrow, officially, I will be doctor now. So if you don't know, it's part of why I'm taking such a big break is I've been working on my PhD for a long time, and so now I am
Dr. Steve.
Let's go, Steve. Let's rock, man. I'm ecstatic for you. I'm ecstatic for you.
Yeah, my degree's from U of M, so go blue always.
Let's go, man.
Awesome,
Hey,
man.
that's awesome,
Congratulations,
man.
dude.
Blessings, Steve. That's what's up. Congratulations. Hey, y'all in the comments, man. Leave a congrats for Steve, man. I like
Thank you, MTJ. Thank you.
I
I
love
always tell
that
people
Steve-
getting a PhD is like a marriage or a prison sentence, depending on how you look at it. Sometimes it's awesome and everything's good. Other times it's like I just want to do my time and get out of here, man. So I'm glad I've done my time and it's over.
Look, bro, congratulations to you. I told people early on, I said that this guy is one of the best organizers and kind of presenters of information that I've seen. And I think that you're a teacher because of how good you are at this. And I don't think that I'm starting to realize you're one of those sickos, man. Like you had to go into education. You had to do this stuff.
He is that special type of sicko, without a doubt.
Yep. Yep. It's awesome to see, man. Your work ethic it's what I really, really, really love about our panel. Everybody's working hard. Everybody's getting out there in not just in this lane, but in their own individual lanes, trying to do the best that they can to be good people and productive people, man. Congratulations, Steve. Congratulations, bro. For real.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, brother.
Appreciate it, fellas. And thanks everybody that's giving me congrats in the comments. Appreciate it. Yeah, man, we should have run across each other at U of M. I was there from 2012 until like 2021. So who knows what happened.
But Steve, look, bro, we're going to talk about this Pistons schedule, man. It was released and try and figure out how favorable it is for the Pistons to kind of hit the ground running, get some chemistry before they hit some of the bumpier parts of their schedule in the second half of the season. And I want to talk about how many wins, but I was just talking about with Sean. I kind of want to focus on, are the Pistons better than 5 teams? We talked about this last year. I want to talk about it this year. Are they better than 5 teams in the East to potentially sneak into or make that play-in tournament? And then we got to talk about the Cade, Cunningham, Rico runs. We got some text messages this week, man, from some sources, Sean, myself, and a couple other of our Pistons content creators about Cade Cunningham going ham. This is just a reoccurring theme. It's like, yo, is my CD skipping? Is it scratched or something? Because it just keeps Cade's hooping, Cade's hooping, Cade's hooping, no matter where he goes. And I love it, bro. So
Yeah,
Sean,
we just keep hearing, all summer, all we've kept hearing is just, man, Cade just keeps showing up to these hoop runs, just keeps showing up to these gyms, and just keeps looking like the best player in it. And, just like, obviously, like when you get a text message like that, it's, there is a part of you that wishes that, part of you like does question before you send out the report just because you weren't there to see it in person. But with a guy like Cade Cunningham, it just makes you confident because we've already seen the evidence. Like I've seen evidence. I've seen already. Hey, like Cade Cunningham be better than Kevin Durant in a game. I've seen Cade Cunningham in his rookie year go toe to toe with Nikola Jokic. Like anyone who's actually watched his games, like he's been the best player in the gym on a numerous amount of occasions. So really, all this guy had to do to get back to that level is get healthy. And the fact that he's there and seemingly, has improved in a lot of areas in his game. I mean, like when you talk about like the ability for Detroit to like get out on a good run, especially like with all these home games they're going to have to like start the season. I think it's just one of those things where, especially, assuming Cade feels well, and I don't think he's going to really miss a beat for all intents and purposes when he comes back just because of the amount of hoops he gets to play before the season starts. But I mean, with the way it's setting up right now, I mean, like, I think that's why it's a little fair to start asking, like, are they better than 5 teams? Because I can't name 5 point guards that are better in the league, not just in the East, in the league. Like,
yep.
So like that's where that, I think it's fair to have that conversation.
Yep. And another thing that I brought up on the pod this week as well, and I know we've talked about it and others have covered it as well, is that Jalen Duren, his footage this summer is not just him doing Andre Drummond things or even Marvin Bagley things. Some of the tapes where we see them doing their individual workouts. Jalen Duren's reports are coming from him playing against some of the world's best basketball players at these practices and during these scrimmages, playing actual basketball against, Triple J and some of these other guys out there. Like, that to me matters, man, a whole lot. That the reports we're hearing that Jalen Duren is looking like the most dominant big man in the gym while he's playing against the FIBA World Team. I like to hear that stuff. that to me tells me that this season might be one that doesn't get off to as bumpy a start as I was kind of like, yo, hesitant. And I understand why Rod said, let's wait until we can see the schedule to see how favorable it is. Because I do believe if the fans show up and with the way that the Pistons are trying to come out and play this season, I believe that is a good mix to give them just a little bit of an extra boost to get off to a decent start. We were wondering, can they tread 4-6 after, 4-6, 5-5 after their first 10 games? Can they get to after the first, 40 games? Can they be hovering around 500? And I think that puts them aptly in a position to finish somewhere by the end of the season within that play-in tournament because things get rocky after that.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. One interesting fact about the Pistons schedule. This isn't even a shocker if you've like paid attention for years, but it's just one of those funny, like, of course it happens to Detroit things. Most back-to-backs in the league, I believe at 15. So, it's interesting how, I think this is the second year in a row we've had the most back-to-backs in the league.
It feels like it's every year in a row, but you're probably right. And luckily they got young legs. They got young legs. Those young legs are going to be Asar in the second half of the season and Marcus Sasser. That's where their legs are really going to be needed. And I know usually people talk about the rookie wall, but for some reason the Pistons rookies, they just haven't hit that since Troy Weaver's come in. I don't know what the thing is, but they seem to get better.
I'd say Ivy maybe had like a couple games, and I don't even know if like wall is the right word, but like he did have like a couple games like towards the beginning of the season, like 10, 15 games in where like, he was kind of have to figure some things out, but like he figured them out pretty quickly.
Yeah, and not
mean?
figuring things out. I mean, like usually we see those because you're right. In the beginning, people were like, "Yo, Benedict Mathurin should have been a pick," but usually you see these rookies like
he ran into that wall like a mother.
Then he hit the wall. Whereas Ivy went on some spurts where we're like, why is he averaging 11 assists a game over the last 3 or 4 games? Why is he putting up 25 every single night? Like there were stretches where Ivy was doing that type of stuff in the second half of the season.
Right.
And so that to me was encouraging. Cade Cunningham, what did he do in the second half of his rookie season? He hit no wall. Wall. Sadiq Bey, you know what I mean? As young players, even when he was here, these guys were doing things. Isaiah Stewart was the one where obviously he started decent and then the shoulder injury kind of shuttered things and he got shut down. But I don't think we're going to have any issues with Isaiah Stewart and talking about how hard he goes at what he does on the court, man. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like this team is primed to hit the second half of the season and not get rocked as much as a normal, young basketball team would. I feel like this serious aspect or basketball IQ and having these rookies that you're going to kind of take slow to start the season and Asar and Marcus Sasser with high potential, though, I don't know, man. It's a decent recipe for this team to kind of skate by.
One of those things that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit is what it's going to be like with Isaiah Stewart in the Monty Williams system, specifically like I believe this is year 4 Stu now as well. So like he's going to be, like he going out, going into a season with a rookie extension, the confidence that he's going to be in Detroit, for long term as well. I think he's a guy that is going to be set up to succeed in this year with this year's team, especially, not having to, hopefully not having to play as much 5, as we necessarily need him to. And if we do, it's if we're playing small ball and actually, strategically making that decision. I think, on top of that, like just him playing alongside Duren from day one, I'm excited to see the chemistry that they built. And I'm just curious to see how that front court evolves as the season goes on. Like, I think, it's, I know we have a lot of exciting young players that we can dive into, like, Asar, Cade, Ivy, Duren, but like, even with all those guys, man, like Stu's like, he's a gem. Like it's almost starting to become a little hidden. Kind of crazy.
I want to, Steve, I got to get your comments, man. Any just Steve's thoughts. And then I know that you were a big proponent of double beef and I like where Sean took things with Isaiah Stewart. And so any comments on that as well, man?
Well, just looking at the schedule, again, the back-to-backs, and then after the All-Star break, there's 14 games on the road. Those 2 things are killer for young teams, in my opinion. So I really think it's still like 30-ish wins is probably the best outcome. And my main thing, too, is still defense. Pains me to say it, but I still think this is like a bottom 5 defense. There's no point of attack defender. Asar is your best wing defender. I love Asar. You know how much I love Asar, but when your rookie is your best wing defender, it's not a good idea. That just doesn't bode well for that. And then Jalen Duren is still figuring out on defense. Every great big from Dwight Howard, Tyson Chandler, all the great defensive guys, it takes a while for them to figure it out. It might take 3 or 4 years. Nick Claxton is another good recent example. Jared Allen, another good recent example. It's just, it would be rare for him to really hit it in his second year. The Rico runs and the Team USA and stuff with Jalen Duren has been fantastic. I still believe Cade is there. And the other part of it that I still am like, even though I believe in it, I know it's going to take time, is Ivy and Cade. We've had, 12 games of those two? So that's just going to take figuring out. And if you listen to Game Theory podcast, maybe like a week ago, Sam Vecini had James Edwards on. And they went over a lot of these points, and he was saying, Cade kind of deferred to Ivy in the beginning to get Ivy going. So there might still be that of what's my role? I want to get you easy shots and stuff. I saw all those three things to me still think especially the back-to-back stuff. Man, I can't. I mean, it's going back to going to work when the Pistons were any good against back-to-backs. They've just been terrible with the back-to-backs for so long. It's going to take a while for them to get out of it.
Horrible, bro. You're not lying. But you know what? You bring up some great points. And that's why I love our panel, man, because I think we cover it from as many different angles as we can. And this is one caveat here. A lot of things you mentioned, I think this is the wizardry or why you go out there and secure somebody like a Monty Williams. I feel like if they were just if this was last year, I don't think that they're even looking at a coach like Monty Williams. You kind of just go through the rigmarole, like the things you brought up as issues that young teams go through. You kind of just go through that. But they're sitting at this crossroads or intersection where they lost a year, and they got to get going fast, or else fans are going to be. You guys already know what fans are going to do if this is a year where the Pistons come back with less than 30 wins. So now all of a sudden you enter into the mix high IQ basketball players and a Monty Williams. And I think that gives them their best chance. Like if you had to pick any scenario for the Pistons to go through this year, I do believe that Monty Williams with this mix of young players is the mix to be able to have. Now, can they do it? Will they do it? I think health is going to be one of their biggest factors. If everybody stays pretty much healthy, I think the Pistons have a good chance to hit that solidly 30-plus wins. The play-in, when you just kind of look at things, it gets a little dicey and tough, but when I look at the rest of the East, I'm not sold on the bottom 5 teams. I'm not 100%. And some of the playoff teams, I'm not completely sold. But, Steve, you bring up some great points, man. You do. Jalen, what up, though, bro?
Dude, what's going on?
What's good, man?
Good to
How
see
you doing?
Yeah. Good.
You've been busy too, huh?
Busy, man.
Before we get back into the Pistons talk.
Just busy doing back to school drive in the Metro Detroit area, Southfield. Sunday we'll be, doing the official drive. We helped out with the district today, book bag, supplies, stuff like that. So just trying to, get back before school starts. I didn't know school started so early nowadays. I didn't go to school till September when I was younger. So, school starts in August now. So just gotta, help out
more kids
can for real. So
hey, being a teacher, I didn't know it started this early.
Good job, I mean, Jalen. You just continue to do things that definitely.
So yeah,
I don't know,
just
man.
doing
I'm
that, just
proud.
having fun doing that, man.
Yeah,
I'm proud,
awesome,
man.
bro.
I'm proud of you, bro. Just keep doing what you're doing. I'm gonna be out there with you Saturday. I know a couple of us are gonna try and come out there and support. And I know you've had other people supporting as well. Keep being a leader. Keep doing things to help the community, and be a platform where other people can come in and assist. Like it's good to know that's there, and we can say, oh, I can bring my oldest and show them the ropes, man. Like I like that type of stuff. So just keep doing that. Like I like where your head's at with making sure the city can be shown at its best and making sure that we can give it our best, man. I really do, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to really quickly bring it back.
I appreciate it 100% always.
Yeah, absolutely. Just really quickly, just to bring it, I just wanted to quickly bring it back for a second to what Steve brought up about, about the Pistons defensively and, what they can do this season. I certainly wonder, I obviously having Cade come back in the lineup is going to be a big impact. And I think the big difference between him and Asay Luka is the amount that he can do on the defensive end. Obviously, you're going to be asking Cade to do a lot on the offensive side of the ball. So it might be, but it might be a little unrealistic to expect him to be like the lockdown defender on the other side of the ball too. And that's where, getting Asar in the lineup is going to be imperative. That is where, guys like Jaden Ivey are going to have to step up. Right. So I think I think, how good they can be defensively this season, I certainly think, is going to be, their capper to where they can end up. But as Kool-Aid kind of mentioned as well, you start looking at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and although we have this stigma with the Pistons of they just won 17 games, and it's difficult to view them in any other lens. We all know if the roster's fully healthy last season, this isn't a 17-win team. It's not. It's just not.
It's not.
Like 8 on the court, they're not winning anything less than 25 games, 24 games at the very least. So, I'm just interested to see, how they compare day one against like a lot of those teams that are going to be in that race, because there are going to be teams that we aren't fully sure on. We don't know where Brooklyn could end up this year. We don't know where Toronto could end up this year. The Wizards are about to take a free fall. The Pacers could be literally anywhere.
Are we sold on Atlanta? Like, are we sold on them?
Oh, never. No,
team?
Absolutely not. But I mean, I do see them like they're probably
never.
Yeah, I mean, no. But in reality, like they are a team that has talent. They could make moves. As much as I'm not a Trae Young believer, he's been to the conference finals off of a bad playoff series and Ben Simmons drawing the B, but that's a whole other discussion. But like in all seriousness, like I think there's a lot of credence to what Steve has to say about like how they do on the defensive end, and I think that's going to be the story of how this team grows and evolves this season. I'm interested to see where they rank day one versus where they rank game 82.
That's the key thing. We followed that last year, looking at the fact that with Jeremy Grant, this team was about I want to say like 25th, 24th in the league with their defensive rating and their defensive efficiency. And that's the one thing we said. When you lose a Jeremy Grant, you're going to take a huge step back. And they did. They fell and plummeted to like last. And this is the thing, though. This is the thing. They lost more than Jeremy Grant, obviously going into this season because they just didn't have their guys playing. I would have loved to see how far the defense would have fallen if they could have just played the season. And that's what gets really, really difficult is that all the stats that we can base off their projections, how'd they do last year? Well, they didn't because they just didn't play. And that's been the hardest and most difficult part. And so I like the way that Steve kind of zeroed in on individual players. Jalen Duren and his defense, that's something that I'm a little bit like, I want to see, can he be that rim protector? That not the rim protector where, like right now he can get up there and affect some things, but the rim protector, you mentioned guys who we remember guards and even wings being afraid to drive in there. That's what we remember. They didn't have to be Ben Wallace, but we knew that there were certain bigs out there where, hey, listen, they're kind of feared. Samuel Dallenberg was one of those guys, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He wasn't no Ben Wallace, but did you want to go into the paint against Samuel Dallenberg? You didn't. There was a little bit of error in time when that man was spiking volleyballs on the court. And so it's like, I agree with that, man. If Jalen Duren, he's the one that I'm hoping can make this biggest leap out of any player on the squad. And now that you got me thinking, I used to be so center focused on his footwork, his paint, moves and things. That defense has to be, I think, the biggest, not just improvement he makes, but addition to his game as well. Anything he doesn't have, like there has to be things that he makes that allows Stewart to kind of, the defensive, things that people might think are drawbacks, minimize that.
If I can say one thing though, like this is why starting Stewart and why I've been so adamant about trading Bojan. Stu and Asar are both players that will not leave Duren out to dry against like quicker guys or make him come out of the paint more. They're going to have their assignments, and especially with Beef Stew, his level of communication and being that next for line before Duren, like that, he's just not going to let him get sucked out of the paint. He's not going to leave him high and dry out on an island. Asar ditto. Cade will be that way as well, but after that, I'm uncertain.
Stu is very important, and bro, that is huge. The quarterback of the defense, even if you don't think that he has the measurables to play the 5, or some people don't even think he should be playing the 4. It's like, I don't think you guys understand how valuable a quarterback of your defense is, who can help your young guys continue to develop and continue to know where to be on the court, understand all the little shortcuts and things. We saw how good it was for Andre Drummond to have Rasheed Wallace for like a little bit of a season, man. To be able to have Isaiah Stewart on the court who other teams respect and fear, man. What were you going to say, though, Sean?
Well, first of all, really quick, Steve brought up the Game Theory podcast a minute ago. Shout out Bryce Simon from Motor City Hoops.
Yeah.
For appearing on today's episode,
Shout out,
appearing
Bryce.
with Sam Vecini. Like, holy cow.
The goat, man, the goat.
I just feel like it's important, like, even though like a What Were Pistons alum, someone who works his butt off, and like someone who's just a good person, I think it's important to celebrate those types of wins, like for this community. And so like that's just phenomenal. So
I'm glad you did that. We started this kind of with partly with the from half courts before there was a table talk. I'm sorry, the fast breaks. We did the Woodward Pistons fast breaks. And Bryce was kind of a big contributor to that early on.
Yeah,
and,
he joined us from his classroom, man, in between
Yeah.
lunch.
Yeah, he was
like this guy was in his high school classroom, joining us from his desk, his whiteboard in the background.
Oh,
like
boy,
just
Grimes,
the nicest
man.
guy on the planet, man. Like,
he was the first guest on the draft show here too. So shout out Bryce, man.
Yeah, just a good person. Another super cool thing, by the way, Jalen Rose was a part of the Pistons schedule video, which we'll get to in a minute. But back to what we were talking about with Jalen Duren. I feel like even if he's an above average rim protector this season, it takes his team to a different level. I think that the most interesting thing, and I'm sure Steve, you might be able to speak on this a little bit more as well. I feel like from day one, we're going to see a similar strategy what we saw when Duren was on the court last season, which is when you see a young big in the league, you attack him. Like, like a lot of times, like bigs in particular, like you said, Kool-Aid with Ben Wallace, especially back in the day, there was just this aura in the paint. There was this wisdom from players of I ain't gonna be able to get anything in there. You know what I mean? Like I can try, but it's not gonna happen against Ben. When you have young bigs like Duren, since you are still learning a lot of the instinctual stuff in the game, since you are more likely to draw fouls, it's kind of like a target for those guys. So I think for Duren, it's going to be especially imperative early on for him to establish that, no, you're not going to get free fouls here in the paint. And I think that's going to be like, if he can stay out of foul trouble and not necessarily, he doesn't have to be this this shot blocking machine. If he can contend solid shots at the rim with his frame and staying out of foul trouble, like that is something that takes his team to a different level.
Yeah. Jalen, man, what's your thoughts on it, brother?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. About Duren, I think with him though, I think I want a little more offense from him. I guess you can say maybe just a tad bit. I'm not really disappointed in how he plays defense. Like it's Duren, I think he'll be a better, player. He'll be smarter this year. He's had the experience with the Team USA. He's, the Rico Hines runs. He's doing that type of stuff. So I think he'll be a much better and smarter defender. But if we can get him like maybe a 15, 12-footer that he was working on in the summer league, if he can do that, it's just like he'll be a force. And inside that paint, like Sean was saying, like you want it to be where like people can't come in there. Like it's officially just closed for business. Like it's shut down. Whenever you drive into the paint, like he's there every single time. So I think he's going to take a big leap this year. And I want the paint to be like a no-fly zone. Like, that's just what I want it to be for real.
Well, and with offensively with Duren, it's like it's exciting to think about all the possibilities. Like to your point, if he can add a 13 to 15 foot jumper, like mid-range jump shot, like that does add a different element. But imagine the element that's already going to be added from day one of just being able to play pick and roll with Cade Cunningham. I mean, we saw just that basic action was tearing apart Team USA Select, right? And so, even just the ability for Duren to play with Cade and to get to the rim, catch lobs over the cylinder, like those are going to be the things, in my opinion, that are going to help his game like dramatically. Like I think over the next few years, we'll definitely start to see those elements of Duren's game be more polished because he is just one of those freaks of nature who's always in the gym. But at the same time, the thing that's scary about Duren is he doesn't have to do anything crazy to dominate in this league. If he just does the simple things really well, he's gonna be an all-star big for years to come.
Yep.
Like,
It's
just
the
with
thing
his
that
athleticism alone, like he's already gonna be that.
it's what we called out early with him with Durham. We were like, yo, can he pass the big man triage? Some of the things that we were coining on here for a while. And even some of the things that Steve was talking about, the pairing of Stu and Duran, even and the ways that they would be able to complement each other and play off of each other on the court. And another thing that I really like is this. When you get them kind of like on point, when you get Duran kind of to the point where he can play by himself without a Stewart, then your lineups become so much versatility when you start bringing in people like Wiseman, who I believe has an opportunity to be a decent rim protector as well, and Bagley, who brings a little bit different wrinkle to the game as it relates to the pick and roll. He's a bucket. I know that he has some limitations and some setbacks, but he is a bucket. He's a guy, especially when he's in shape and he's healthy. You give him the rock, that guy can go get you 20 points easily. He's one of those guys that you look up and it's like 8 of 11, easy, 20 points for him.
To me, Marvin Bagley, as someone that covers the team and, someone who still, has that, I mean, the fandom's never going to go away, right?
Never go away.
No, it never goes away, but, with like Marvin to me is like the biggest
Never.
enigma of this team this upcoming season. It's like, what in the heck is his role? Like, how much specifically is he going to, like, that is a can of, that could be an entire table talk in itself, I feel like.
Marvin Bagley is the most interesting case because he feels like he is the candidate that is probably most likely to be gone out of all the bigs if there was going to be a trade of that.
Well, like,
But
he's the guy, like, if he was traded, you wouldn't be shocked. If he was, if he had a bounce back breakout season where he averaged 12 points a game and proved to be a solid bench player, you wouldn't be shocked. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a thing where you could see him soar. You could see him soar in a plane to another team via trade. You know what I mean? Like, both seem highly possible.
Hey, Mr. Jones, the couple times that we see Duran put the ball on the floor, he did. He looked good doing a couple things. And I think it's what makes us really, really excited about his game. We know that he can take the leaps that Andre Drummond tried to take, but it just wasn't a part of his game. It didn't fit to his natural scope. When I look at Jalen Duran actually take dribbles on the court and actually take shots, it looks like that's part of his natural part of his game. Like, it looks like he's not out there having to go out there and, let me go and work at this. When we're in the gym for like some of the media sessions, when we're at the games beforehand and we just see him just shooting, it's like, oh, he can do this. And that's, I don't want to see him like fall in love with the 3-point shot, but if he could find some way to one dribble, two dribble, pull up, kind of like McDice, as a big sometimes, I wouldn't mind that at all. I really, especially off of like pick and pops, pick and rolls with Cade Cunningham. It changes the whole way the defense has to play. If the defense knows Duran can catch a lob or he can pick and pop, how wide open does that make the lane for guys like Cade Cunningham off of pick and rolls or Jaden Ivey or Asar Thompson? Our package of guards that we have means that you need or you do desire or want some bigs that can stretch the floor, even if it's just a little bit, because it just opens up so much and it makes the defense have to think twice about what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely, man. Cool. And I think it's a good time to start diving into the schedule.
Yeah, definitely. You brought up some good points here too, man, about the back-to-backs as well as the road trips that kind of pile up there in the second half of the season, man. Where do you want to start with this?
Yeah, man. So, like, let's start. Let's read some key dates right off the bat. Like, let's just get those established. So, opening night, Detroit's going to start the season on the road in Miami, which is a really interesting one because we have no idea who they're facing. Like, they could face Jimmy Butler, they could face Damian Lillard. Like, we have no idea necessarily who's going to be on that team opening night. So,
yeah,
if that is indeed the debut of Damian Lillard, that's a fascinating one. And then they open their season at home on the 28th against the Bulls. So second time in 3 years, their first home game is against the Bulls. So that'll be fun to see as well. Some big dates. The Pistons have 4 national games this year, one on ESPN. That will be at home on January 12th against the Houston Rockets, aka the Thompson twins game, the Cade versus Green game. This is going to be, like as far as, like that's definitely one that I'm circling right away, getting the popcorn prepared for. And, you kind of already brought it up, like to your point of like, the Pistons certainly, like they have a lot of, a lot of back-to-backs in the latter half of the season. In particular, that stretch right before the All-Star break is brutal, where they have to face the Kings, the Blazers, the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Suns, all right before going to All-Star break. But I mean, at the same time, like overall, you look at the schedule. I think there's certainly a lot of opportunities for this team to really make some noise. But like as you said, they're really going to have to make some noise, like at the beginning if they want to be in that play-in spot. Just because of the way their schedule does break in the second half of the season, it's just not quite as favorable. So it's not quite the NFL schedule where your season can be impacted by who you're playing as well, because you don't play the same opponents every year. Like, I mean, the NBA, you play the same opponents, it's just shaken up over 82 games. But you're like the order of those games, when you play, the amount of back-to-backs, your travel days, like those things matter. So, like a lot of interesting, a lot of interesting tidbits already, in my opinion, from just reviewing the schedule day one. I wonder what stood out to you guys.
Honestly, Rob, to me, it was kind of interesting. He said he wanted to just see those first 10 games to see how they get off the ground running, because he said he's been in locker rooms, been around the sport long enough, and been in other locker rooms, other sports, where the mood of the team can be significantly impacted by how they start. And if they start bad, it could just continue bad. It's hard to dig your way out of that hole. And then he said it also changes what they do at the deadline as well as they approach. He's hoping that there are people that push, and I feel like this too, that can be more buyers. And so when I kind of look at this first 10 games, the first thing that I look at is October. You got 4 games right there that I believe you have a great opportunity to come away at least 500.
Yep.
If you play to the peak, obviously that OKC game is going to be tough, but we've seen Cade go and do what? Handle OKC 2 years in a row now. So it's like with SGA, Lou Dortz and those guys, huh?
That is going to be, talk about a fun beginning of the year matchup. Shea versus Cade, like almost like literally right off the bat. Talk about being spoiled, man. Like, oh my gosh.
But they got to be on it, man. They got to be on it.
No, absolutely they do. I'm just talking. That was me being a fan there. I'm not envying them. But you look at the first 10 games, and to your point, Kool-Aid, like they're gonna have to like get off to a good start. Look who they face in those first 10 games, man. They face the Oklahoma City Thunder. They face the New Orleans Pelicans. They face the Blazers, who as of right now still have Dame. They face the Phoenix Suns, the Golden State Warriors, the Milwaukee Bucks, the 76ers. Like you talk about like how important those first 10 games are. They aren't like this is the NBA, man. You're not facing scrubs on a night-to-night basis, and to start the season, it sure as hell is not an exception.
Not at all. Steve, how you feeling about these first 10 to 20 games, brother?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's like favorable again to get these matchups where you're not going to be facing the top defenses in the NBA, and then they'll be able to figure out Cade and Ivy's dynamic. I think that's the main takeaway that I take from it, is just like these are good 10 games for Cade and Ivy just to try things out, to see what works and what sticks. Even Miami doesn't exactly have like the top defensive front court. They're having a reload there, and then Charlotte, Lol. Chicago, who knows? They could go either way. They could be like the worst team in the league. They could still be a playoff team. Portland, Pelicans.
They're going to be one of the teams of all time, Steve.
Yeah.
They're going to be one of them.
Exactly. Pelicans do not have great defensive backcourt. And then Phoenix is probably the first like kind of real test. But if you've seen Bradley Beal play defense in the last like 5 years, not exactly stellar there.
Hey, ask Cooper Flag.
And then after that is the Warriors, and the Bucks. So those will be the ones where it's like, okay, now the intensity is ramped up. Now you guys really, really, really have to show something. And then Philadelphia, Chicago back again, Atlanta, lol. So
yeah, well, you brought up Phoenix. That's going to be like the Toronto games over the last few years with Dwayne Casey have always been really fun because there was always an extra different level of intensity and energy that came out of those games because they wanted to win those ones for Coach Casey, right? So now, especially with like they already we're going to bring the energy because they're facing Kevin Durant, they're facing Devin Booker, they're facing like two of the 5 best players in the entire freaking league, but on top of that, you throw in the extra motivation of letting Monty go, of Cade wanting to prove himself and establish his place in the league. Like that's gonna be another one where I think that could have been a really good national game, like national televised game. That's gonna be another one that you're gonna want to get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, I really hope they do just like try things during those first even 10 to 20 games, even if it doesn't look pretty, just to see, okay, what can stick, like who's going to be in the more off-ball role. And spoiler alert, it's probably going to be Ivy, but just to give an idea of like what that actually looks like.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see as well with how well Ivy did in like a main ball handler role last year, where he actually slots in Monty Williams' mind. Like, are there going to be sets or major times where Ivy is a ball handler as well? Like that's interesting to me because they did go and they loaded up on ball handlers. They got Marcus Sasser. They got Monty Morris, coming off the bench as well. Alec Burks can handle
Monty
the ball.
Williams, Monte Moore. We got too many Monties. I get it. You gotta genuinely think about which Monty is. I understand.
Yep. But man, I don't know. When I look at these first 20 games, I believe, before the in-season tournament, October, I feel like if they can come through that 2-2, they give themselves a great opportunity to I don't know, to land somewhere around I would say 8 or 9 wins if they really, really, really are pushing by the in-season tournament.
Oh, I was gonna say the first 10 games. I was like, what?
No.
Sound
was like,
okay, I guess. All right.
By golly, Kool-Aid. It's like, no, the first 20 games.
Lookers.
If they really push, I'm seeing like 8 games. If they really, really, really push. And if they came away after this 8-12 going into that in-season tournament and just made a run through that thing, I think that we're looking at a Pistons team that's going to be fully confident. And I know how it sounds, but when I look at this squad, like, okay, the young players that we believe are not going to take a step back are Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham. We believe those guys are going to step in next season and at least be kind of what we saw them be last year at some of their better moments. We believe then that Bojan, Alec Burks, we don't believe those guys. Do we believe those guys are taking steps back? I don't want to speak for people.
So with Bojan, he might. The only step back I would see him taking is more of a deferring role than last season. Like the only step back I would see is just him not having the same role as last season where he was the number 1 scorer on the team. But like when you talk about like when Bojan's game is like going to decline, it's not going to be because of his athleticism. It's not going to be anything because of that. Like the guy can get a bucket when he's 50 with a broken hip, for God's sakes. Like the dude just scores buckets.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, Steve, bro, I'm with you. The defense is going to be big because that's the only one that I can't in my mind statistically say, well, they can get it from here or here. I have no idea where they're going to get the defensive improvement. It's exactly what Troy Weaver said. It's going to have to come internally. These guys are going to have to will it. But on the offensive side of things, I'm looking at people who can go out there any given night and put up 15 to 20 points across the board. And that's where I think what you stated and what Sean has intimated as well is how quickly do they meld things? Because just because people can go out there and throw up the 15 to 20 points a game doesn't mean that it's necessarily something that meshes well with this squad. Now, I think it does. They're high IQ. They're a young team. I think that they have a little bit of that Hollywood in them, like that bright lights in them, where they look to play make for each other. Though these guys have that streak in them where they're getting to the rack and they're trying to dunk and they're trying to this and they're trying to that, you kind of see whether these guys off the pick and rolls especially are looking to make the right passes, looking to make the lob passes, looking to make something that can inject energy into the squad. And so it's like from that perspective, I'm hoping I'm hoping that the offense gets out there, and it's not going to look like a well-oiled machine from night one, but I'm hoping that they go out there and a Cade Duran pick and roll with Bojan in the corner looks good. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, my mind has a hard time fathoming Cade, Ivy, Bojan, Stu, and Duran, and like those pick and rolls looking trash. We saw it look good when there was no Bojan and there was no Duran and there was no Ivy during the second half of Cade's rookie season. So it's like, if they can come out and kind of do the things they do well and do them consistently, and that's where depth comes into play and coaching, they have a good shot on offense. But the defense, Steve, it's going to take some great internal growth for the squad to really do this thing.
And to Steve's point, I think, there are a lot of guys. I'm sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. Forgot I spoke. Just cut this out the last 5 seconds. You guys go ahead. I got to stop looking at my other screen and when I'm trying to think of the thought, man. Like, that is, oh my God. Go ahead.
Man, you got something to say, Jalen? Let's go, bro. Or Steve. Just this defense, man.
Mention, I think I seen a tweet about the last like 9 out of 11 games this year on the road. I think I seen a tweet about that, and it's just like, it's far fetched. But if we were, in the 10th seed contention or 9th seed contention, I would hope that our team is mature by then and like mesh well together, because on the road in April for playoff spots is not the best, it's not ideal for young teams and everything. So I'm kind of worried about that if we're in that situation. But if not, then so be it. But if we're like 11th or like 12th, 2 games out, like the 10th seed, by chance, I would hope we can maybe get 7 out of 11, 8 out of 11 of those, because I don't know who they're against. I didn't look that far down, but
I can tell you.
Give me the list.
March is at Orlando, then at Miami, and then the next away game is at Boston, and then it's at the Knicks, and then it's at Minnesota, and then it's at Washington, then it's at Atlanta, then it's at Memphis, then it's at Brooklyn, then it's at
so 7 or 8 out of 11. Yeah, that's
7 or 8. You minus about 4, so we can go 3 for 11.
Hey, but it ends with San Antonio.
I don't see one
there.
Look, I heard a lot of teams in there, man. When you're talking about this kind of into the season, I'm hearing some teams in there that if this squad is serious about making this next step, they brought in, I keep forgetting Joe Harris. They brought in NBA talent. We kept saying they lost NBA talent when Kelly Olynyk and Jeremy Grant went out the door. They brought in more NBA talent. They brought in more young players. They tried to do some things to shore up the defense just a little bit. They got to do a lot more to me, but some of this stuff is just like, man, you guys got to do it. We saw Orlando competing for a play-in spot last year. The same Orlando team that if we went and poll Piston fans or content creators or people who cover the team, who's the better squad? Most people that I've talked to would say we believe the Pistons are the better squad, or at least have the better trajectory. Not that Orlando is not talented, but we saw them on opening night go head-to-head. And it wasn't like Paolo was looking like a rookie. He looked like Paolo Banchero. He was out there hooping. It's just Cade of things, man. The gravity that he absorbed, man, on the play to Stu, like, I don't know, man. To win the game, it's just like, I believe in them. I really do. I believe if they get the defense together, and I don't know if it's belief or expectation. I think it's more or less expectation. We're going into years 4 of Troy Weaver. I know that the injuries have played some same role. But when we're talking about what we've seen Ivy and Cade put on paper, we know Bojan and Alec Burks can do. The runs we've seen this team go on already, I don't know, man. That second half of the season with those teams, go in there and find a way to win, 4, 5, 6 of those road games, man. Find a way to do that. Straight up. It's like it's just to that time. It's to that point for me, man.
Yeah. And so, like to Steve's point earlier, like talking about how this team is gonna have to try things. They are going to have to experiment. Like at the beginning of the season, they're almost going to have no choice because, like there is going to have to be that period of Monty figuring out the roster and the pieces that he has and how everything works together. But, I think like you do talk about like, I even though obviously this, the schedule has difficult stretches, even though, the East is like one of the deepest conferences, like it's ever been. I think overall, like, when you do look at the talent that they have, in-house and a lot of the pieces that, again, if they can actually start to put together and we saw that momentum where this team went a couple games under 500 to end, not last season, but, the 2021-22 season, but, Cade's rookie year, they were a different team that second half of the year.
10 and
So
14 in games he played in, and they just win 2 of those games, which were down to the wire, and they're 500 in those games.
right, and again, like, I know it's difficult to with last year's record and just where this team's been to say, "Oh, they could be better than 5 teams in the East," but, like, listen to the bottom of the East. Charlotte. We have no idea where they can end up. Orlando. They're I know everyone's super
I
high
know where
on them.
Charlotte can end up, and it's in the garbage.
Yeah, you said it, not me. Orlando's another team that could take a step up, but they have some things they're gonna have to figure out as well. Washington, we already know where they're gonna go. They're in the crapping for Cooper camp right now.
2 years away. 2 years away.
Yep. They're just holding on for dear life. And then the Pacers, their team. I think honestly, even though the Pacers, like, were definitely better than us last year by record and I think the talent between the Pistons and Pacers is actually comparable.
I believe I agree
Steve's
with
like,
that.
no.
I know Steve doesn't want to, but I agree with that. I believe that the Pistons' high-end young talent is better than Indiana's high-end young talent. Though I believe Indiana, in terms of their defense, I think they got more dogs on defense right now. But again, we haven't seen the Pistons play. That's what I'm saying. Individually, we're like, Cade can go. Some of these guys, but yeah. I feel like Indiana
I
beat them
forgot
on
that
defense right now.
Indiana was the all Steve team. I forgot they have every player that Steve loves.
Yeah.
I literally realized right as I was saying it.
They're like so mid.
Yeah.
Though. That's the thing, though. Like this season, they'll be like 42 wins, but then in 2 seasons, they'll still be like 42 wins. Where I agree with that, where Detroit's young talent is a lot higher ceiling. Even though I love Tyrese Halliburton, like he defensively, he's always going to be limited. He's always going to be limited to like going inside and scoring. But right now, no. Like Rick Carlisle's fantastic coach. Record speaks for himself.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Rick who? No, I'm kidding.
Ooh.
Rick Carlisle's phenomenal, man.
It's going to be a battle. So at the least, what we're saying is that the Pistons should be in the conversation for the play-in. At the very least, it's like you want to see, like Orlando last season, right? If the Pistons had a season like Orlando, where coming down the stretch, they had an opportunity to be able to make the play-in. Hey, is that an okay season for you guys? Even if they don't make it?
If they're in the conversation, that's a win.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at too, man. We want to see him do it. What's up, Jenna?
You just want to see growth. Like you got to see growth with this team. If we're healthy, you want to see growth. If we're not healthy, I understand. That's how the NBA works. But you have to see growth, because if you don't, then we have to have some talks that we don't want to have. They're early talks, but it's like you want to see growth. You want to see us fight. You don't want to see us, go out there. Just make it hard. I think I said it a couple episodes ago. Make it hard for teams to play us. I think how OKC was last year. Make it hard. If you make it hard for teams, they're not going to play you. They're going to be scared. They don't want to admit it. They're going to be terrified to play us at home too. The city comes out. We just need to play hard and show growth. If we show growth, I would not be upset if we come in at 11th or 12th. But if we come 13th, 14th, or 15th, I would not be happy at all.
If
we're healthy too.
Yeah, 4 bigs on the roster. Like, a lot of people are sitting here saying we got so many bigs, and now we even have so many guards. You know what I'm starting to think, man? When certain teams load up like that, it allows them to play more aggressively, because you can afford to have guys in foul trouble. We have legitimately 4 interchangeable bigs. Not that there's not a hierarchy, but we have 4 interchangeable bigs. I know Steve doesn't like hearing that, but the way that it seems like Troy Weaver likes James Wiseman, it's something else, man. I believe that our best.
Can I give you a James Wiseman stat that I've been holding on to for a while?
Say it, man.
Last year, in 603 minutes, defensive on-off numbers. I know people are like, whatever with on-off numbers, but I implore you, go look at any defensive numbers. Wiseman in points per 100 possessions on the defensive end gave up plus 8.2. What does that mean? That means he was in the 3rd percentile. That means he was in the bottom of the bottom. And in effective field goal percentage on the defensive end, he was plus 6.2. He was in the 1st percentile.
Defense, he has some ways to go, and I'm glad to see him slim down. But I do believe overall impact wise that that both of those, that all 4 of the bigs are pretty much interchangeable.
So what you're saying is he's average? No, I'm kidding.
That's why I'm saying they're not interchangeable, though. I think Wiseman is the one. And we saw it with the Jabari Smith game. I know it's just one thing, but like out on the perimeter, you can't put him out there. Like if you put him out there, you're just asking for trouble. I know he's got to be parked at center, and I think Bagley has to be parked at center too as well, right?
I would put him at center. I think Marvin Bagley has an easier time at defending on the perimeter, but I think it's about the mix-ups and the matchups that they utilize. And that's why I said I think they're interchangeable. I feel like Wiseman's offense is ahead of Duren's offense right now, whereas Duren will have a little bit better impact on defense. And so I don't mean interchangeable as in one-to-one player, but if Duren got in foul trouble because he's playing as aggressively as he can, I'm comfortable with Marvin Bagley and James Wiseman on the bench rather than it being a different type of a center like Trey Lyles or who knows, Sacramento loves Trey Lyles now. But you know what I mean? Like I feel like, you know what I mean? The bigs we have are above average bigs at something. Offense,
we actually have size
defense,
in comparison to the seasons in the past.
Yeah, even if they choose to hang on to a guy like Killian Hayes, the first thing I'm telling him to do if he gets minutes is, hey, bro, go out there. I don't care if you get 6 fouls. I want every one of the dogs you can muster up in your chest and go out there and strap up. Be in that guy's jersey. That allows you to do that when you have a lot of different guards on your squad. It used to be a time, though, where if Killian Hayes got in foul trouble, well, there's our ball handler and our playmaker. It's like we're not in that position anymore. Now we're in a position. If it used to be if Marvin Bagley got in foul trouble, Marvin Bagley got injured to start the season and we had no one to run the pick and roll. That is completely different this season. And so it puts the Pistons in a position to be able to, in my opinion, play more aggressively, be able to sell out a little bit more, be able to get into a little bit of that foul trouble, be able to bring that bad boys culture back like Cade Cunningham was talking about. That's where I'm hoping. And you're right. Wiseman, he got to make a leap defensively. He with the weight coming down, I'm hoping it makes him a little bit more nimble and a little bit more versatile, but I don't know how much people make those types of defensive leaps, those huge leaps from one season to the next.
I mean, for bigs especially, that's how you get your time on the court. You know what I mean? Like if you can't be, you know, like a deterrent on the defensive end, especially with the gifts that Wiseman has physically, you know, I think a lot of that, honestly, you know, just is, I think that's where a lot of the mental aspects of his game and where missing a lot of time is really hurting him, is because a lot of those defensive instincts, a lot of those things that you learn from reps, he just doesn't have. Right. So like, I think it is going to be, you know, like I like that Jabari, even though it is just summer league, you know, like you don't want to take too much from it. I am interested to see how Wiseman responds after that, because it, you know, even though it's summer league, he still had someone on national television say in the camera to his teammates on the side of the court, he can't guard me at all. I'm a lip reader. I can't read lips for most circumstances. Even I could read that one crystal clear.
That one was like, it was a billboard, bro. It was a LED. It was like one of those side of the buildings out in Japan, bro, that just has a message to you. It was that bright. It was that clear. And it was just like, with James Wiseman, I'm hoping, and when we get to talk to him, and you got to talk to him as well, Sean, we get the sense that he's the type of guy that works. Like when I did see him at media session, I was like, "Who he slimmed down?" But that was before summer league.
He's a really good kid. Like just from all the interviews, from, you know, like just like from like the quality of the person and the character and everything like that, like great head on his shoulders. So like that's another reason why, you know, like you talk about betting on the person. Like James Wiseman is like a person that I feel decently comfortable betting on. Yeah.
And one of the reasons I'm picking on Wiseman is Monty Williams. Monty Williams, if you go look at his schemes and especially who the backup is, it's almost always a defensive specialist. Bismack Biyombo has been the backup there for a long time in New Orleans. He had Robin Lopez. He had Emeka Okafor for a season. They even traded for Omar Ashik, like I said, for one season. That's why I'm like, man, either he's changing his scheme a lot or Wiseman's the one that. And going into contract year, that's the toughest part about it. Even if you want to believe in him, like if he's still that bad of a defender, I don't know what you do with him at the end of the season. That would be a really tough sell to be like, yeah, let's bring him back and keep his huge cap hit on the books in the meantime.
I agree with that 100%. If the defense doesn't improve, he's almost like defensively what Killian is almost offensively. It's like you guys have to take steps forward or else we cannot. Like Killian is already at the end of this, and both of those guys are in that same draft class. So it's just like I don't know.
Right.
I don't want to see Troy make the investment in Wiseman unless the defense is serviceable. I don't think he needs to be great. He has a lot of intangibles on offense that makes him a plus player. But when you're negative on defense, then you're starting to take away from what makes you a plus.
He's another guy that if he just sticks to the simple things, like he doesn't have to be this world-stopping shot blocker on the defensive end. If he can rebound at a high rate, keep his arms up, and not foul, and keep his man in front of him, like he can be a above average to pretty dang good defensive player with everything he has in his tools in his tool belt. Again, it's just going to be the matter of a figure, and I don't think it's unfair to bring that up, Steve, and because Wiseman is he is one of those pieces where you talk about the trajectory and the ceiling of this team. He's one that can elevate it, but at the same time, if he isn't bringing those developments, and you aren't seeing some of those next steps, like you have to have a conversation about what his future is, and that's just the business of the league. Like he's just. Like you talk about like one of the he is just one of the questions that's going to be answered this season. And so, again, just the kind as we are kind of getting to the final couple minutes of the show, like we talk about like could the Pistons be better than 5 teams in the Eastern Conference? We look at the bottom of the again, it's difficult to to conceive initially, but then you look at the East. I think they could be better in Charlotte. I think they can be better in Orlando. I think they can be better in Washington. I think they can be better in Chicago. I think they could potentially have a really crappy season. I think Toronto is another team that's going to essentially going to have to admit at some point they're in a rebuild because, it's like they're trying to tell themselves otherwise. But my brother put my brother in court for a rebuild. The Nets, depending on where the heck Ben Simmons is physically, mentally, I think that's another team that we could be pretty comparable to. So, you go up and down the conference, especially with how some injuries shake, how some games, how some balls bounce at the end of some games. Like, I really do think there's some squads in the East that the Pistons can hang with.
That's man, look, that's what got me excited a little bit. Like looking at this thing, when it's like how many wins and how many wins did the teams last year make? It kind of goes, man, I don't know if they can get to 40 something wins. But when you're just looking at it team by team, talent by talent, roster by roster, coach by coach, it's just like, man, they got the recipe, man. They got shooters. I saw somebody else say it now. They got shooters now. They got playmakers now. They got some bigs. They got the pick and roll game back now. They got the pick and pop. They got the lob threats. They got the athleticism. They have the speed. It's just what will crash everything. We're in Detroit. We already know, and it's what Steve brought up first. It's the defense, man. If they can find a way to just be serviceable as a team, as decent as they were with Jeremy Grant, they weren't world beaters, but they weren't trash. We didn't look at that squad and say, yo, they are horrible defensively. They weren't. They were a decent team, and we all shuddered when Jeremy Grant got traded. I don't know who else was out there asking the questions. We were excited for where the team could go. And this was even before the Duran news, before they acquired Duran. This was just in that gap. But we were all sitting there like, what does this loss actually mean for them? As we got Duran, we got excited and we came to the table talk. We talked with Rod. We did our own content and we all were like, yo, how is this going to affect their defense, man? Because they don't have anybody who can defend these kind of taller players, these 6'9" guys, these kind of superstars of the league on the wing. You know, I don't know, but this season, man, when you put it at just these 5 teams, can they be better than 5 teams? And you look at also the teams that made the playoffs last year that may take a step back. The thing that I'm going to continue to do and hopefully be able to properly articulate is I'm going to tell the Pistons, go and shoot for that. Go and beat 5 teams. I think that they should come home with no less than 30 wins this season. And that's giving them maybe some injuries, maybe some ups and downs, no less. I think they land at about 35 wins. But man,
Well,
Sean, the way you put that, it's like go out there and beat 5 teams, bro.
And here's the thing I love about Cade. I know for the fact if he'd be hearing this, he'd be going, 5 teams. We could be better than 6, 7, 8. Not like again, don't doubt what this guy can do on the court day one. Like that alone is going to bring us to a different level. And then the things that excite me when you talk about like defensively this team's potential, I'll just give you 2 names. One we've talked about quite a bit, Jalen Duren. But the second one, if Asar Thompson defensively day one is the guy that we think he can be, talk about a duo that could be awesome together on the defensive end. Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson, those guys pressing the fast break together. Like there's just a lot of reasons to look forward to the season. And obviously, just because basketball is being played, but for the first, like this is legitimately a season that this team could take a step. And, I forgot, I forgot the exact quote. I believe this is from Pat Riley, but it's talking about like what it takes to be a great team in this league. Like you have to start at the bottom. You have to go you have to be a basement dweller. You have to, contend for the play-in. And then from there, you have to get into the playoffs. And then you have to win a playoff game. Then you have to get to the conference finals. Then you got to get to the finals. It's like, it doesn't happen overnight. The great teams that go out and, and do take those steps, it is incrementally. The only time you're going to see a massive jump like that is when a team signs LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Otherwise, in history, that ain't happening.
Unless you draft Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren.
Yeah, I mean,
right? That's how that goes.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I saw someone on Twitter say, I think we could get to 45 wins. And although I love that optimism, that's a 28-win jump. And the Warriors didn't even win 45 games last year.
They didn't have Cade Cunningham.
Let's maybe pump the brakes a smidge.
They didn't have Cade though, bro.
I get it, but the Warriors had Curry and didn't get to 45 wins. Like
Steph Curry, he passed Isaiah Thomas, they say, in these point guard rankings, but that's just to be the step for Cade Cunningham, who's gonna wind up passing him in the point guard rankings eventually. So, man, what's up with the end of these shows, man? Start getting loopy.
I mean, you throw us in front of cameras and a microphone for an hour. We're just bound to start saying stupid things. I mean,
but maybe I'm just dumb.
I'm about to say, let's hear the Valenti drop, bro. Let's hear it. But man, any last words?
Maybe I'm just dumb.
Any last words, Steve, Jalen, Sean, anybody?
I'm interested in the rotation. Oh, go ahead, Jalen. Sorry.
35 plus. That's my mark. 35 wins. If healthy, 35. If we win, I think we won 17 last year. So that's an 18.
Yeah, 17.
30 to 35. No lower than 33. Take it or leave it. If we win 35 plus, playing. Book it. What's today? What's today, Steve? August what? 17th?
August 17th, 2023.
Thursday.
I love you, bro. Let's rock. Hey, shout out Booner too, man. The home.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think, if I had to think of like any last words, training camps in a month, preseason starts in a month and a half. Like, I know when NFL season comes around, everyone's excited about, football's back. That means basketball's right around the corner. So, I think especially I think with what we've learned, what we've reported about, and what we've seen over the last few weeks with how this team is performing in the like in the Team USA select practices, how they're performing in these pro runs, how all these guys are, are setting up to have, like a bounce back season, especially for Cade. Like, I think there's a lot of reasons to believe this team's ready to take the step. What that step looks like, like how many wins that exactly is, we'll see. But I mean, I'll tell you this much. It's not going to be like last year where, like where there's, multiple nights where it's like, oh, and it's a 10-point lead and it's gone. Like, I think this team on a night to night basis, I think this team's going to hang, and I think they're going to be in games. And I think when you talk about a young team in this league, that's what you need. Like, that's where you got to start. You got to be in games first.
Steve, Dr. Steve, my
So
apologies.
I think this team only has 5 guys that are guaranteed like
Burgers and
minutes.
fries.
So right now, 25 or more in minutes per night. Monty Morris, Jalen Duran, Beef Stew, Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham. The rest of the roster, I think, is wide freaking open. This is the first
Yep.
team I can think of in a while where like the sixth man and beyond is just like, who knows? It could be anybody. Bojan could be out of here in like 2 weeks. He got traded here right before training camp started. He could get traded away right before training camp started. Alec Burks and Marcus Sasser is an underrated storyline, I think. I know people want Sasser to play, and in recent history, the 25th pick has played immediately. Recent guys being like Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickly, Mo Wagner. But you can't play Monty Morris, Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, and Alec Burks and then get some weird minutes for Sasser unless you're running 3-guard lineups the entire time. So I think that's one of the more fascinating ones. On my podcast, Data Driven Piston Fan has said he thinks Burks is more tradable or more likely to be traded because of that. But we shall see if that ends up being the case. But I'm really intrigued by training camp because, again, I really only see 5 guys that have 25 minutes or more, and everybody else is up in the air.
Yeah, and I think that's where, a lot of the, inter-team competition is going to start coming into play. I think that's where, preseason is going to be really interesting. I think especially the first 10, 15 games, that's, you're going to see over the course of those games, you're going to start to see Monty beginning to form a rotation he's a little more comfortable with. And so, like last year, there was a lot of, there wasn't a consistent rotation because there wasn't, consistent players in the rotation. But, but this season, like, assuming everyone's healthy and knowing who Monty is as a coach, 15, 20 minutes, like 15, 20 games into the season, we should have a pretty good idea of who he's going to rely on. So, I think even though there's a lot of questions to be answered about this team, I think that's why, like, even if I wasn't a Pistons fan, I'd still think this is one of the most interesting teams in the league because I think we're going to find out a lot about them very quickly. And I think, even though we know the talent and a lot of the stuff they have that, in their favor, I still think they're being underestimated.
Yep.
And that's being proven by the, being tied for the least amount of national games in the league. That's being proven by the most back-to-backs for the second year in a row, just stuff like that.
Yep. And I hope they take it and make it a chip on our shoulders. And one of the things that we've all come who kind of cover the team and fans who watch the team intently is that this team doesn't want any handouts and they don't need to be pushed. They don't need chips on their shoulder. Jaden Ivey looks like he's mad all the time. And they talk about like, we're not used to this. We want to win. And that's what I love. They're not just like, oh, we made it to the NBA. I want to get better. They're like, man, I'm trying to win. I am better. And that's what I like about this squad. And it's kind of the thing that makes me believe that they are capable of making the improvements that we need to see them make going into the season and during the season.
Yeah.
Early on, I think we're going to see this team really, really, really rely on people like Burks, Bojan. I don't know how much we see Joe Harris early on or not. If that shot is falling, you're going to see Joe Harris because he's just going to be able to one corner Bojan, one corner Joe Harris in certain sets.
I saw someone say Joe Harris is injured all the time, by the way. Literally in the last 5 years, he played above 60 games in all but one season. Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to pay attention to the league, that might help.
74 games last year, over 1,200 minutes. Come on now.
Like, the dude's literally, like, he literally has been injured one time.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Genuinely one time.
What are we talking about? Like, thank you.
My bad. 2 times. in 2015, 2016, and then 2021, 2022. Clearly, you know, that 6-7 years
Yeah.
apart. That shows how injury prone the guy is. All the time getting injured.
Bro, Alec Burks, Joe Harris, Bojan Bogdanovic, man, as 3-point shooters. I don't know, man. Like I think where this team has to make sure they don't allow this to be something that catches up with them from a negative is I think Steve is right. The defense and the big man play. I think that those two things are going to be crucial. I believe that if that's what we have to kind of worry about or depend on, I'm a little bullish on them, but you're right. We want to see these guys in preseason, get them in training camp, see if they play with that all-out dog, because there is a level of hustle that can overcome some of their defensive liabilities, and they have the talent to they have the players to at least get to that point, and I'm hoping they do, man.
Yeah.
You want to close this out, bro?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody around the world, thank you so much for tuning in to What We're Pistons Table Talk, making this a staple of your week each and every week. We are grateful for you. Thank you to the boys for always joining us. Shout out to Steve, and again, congratulations for him, completing his PhD, becoming Dr. Steve.
Thank you.
Follow him on X at Resball Pod. You can follow my guy Jalen.
No. We don't call it that. We call it Twitter. It's Twitter.
You can also follow Jalen on X at JalenHTV. I just do it to point out how terrible of a name it is. But follow Kool-Aid on Twitter at Detroit Kool-Aid. You can follow myself on Twitter at Sean Halfcourt, or as we like to affectionately call it, X. But anyway, folks, that is going to do it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We will catch you guys next time when we're Pistons Table Talk. Stay cool, friends.
Stay cool. Stay cool. Stay cool. Man, you about to make me out.